Hello, and welcome to the Iron Spoon Kitchen. In 1976, America celebrated its biggest birthday in 200 years. But before everyone started to watch fireworks, the women of a Galveston, Texas church were quietly publishing a cookbook. My mother helped to write it, and this seafood gumbo recipe was her favorite, as well as our whole family and friends. And today, you'll get to know it also. There's also a special inscription in here from the rector of the church, and I'll share that after I complete the roux. But I think, oh yeah, I think you're going to like this one. Let's get started with seafood gumbo. Seafood gumbo. It is one of my favorites, and my mom used to make it quite often. And one of the good things about this recipe, it's kind of like the etouffee. You can make a whole lot of it and freeze it, and it will taste even better a little bit later. So let's get started on the ingredients. So come on here closer so you can see exactly what all I have. We have 1/3 cup of flour, 1/3 cup of bacon grease, 1 pound of chopped okra, 1 teaspoon of vinegar, half of a red bell pepper, half of a green bell pepper, 1 pound of shrimp, 2 tablespoons of parsley, 1 onion, 2 green onions, 2 stalks of celery, 1 bay leaf, 3 cloves of garlic, salt, pepper, and about 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, a cup of chopped ham, 2 cans of tomato sauce, a pound of crab meat, and a can of clams. And behind there is 1 quart of chicken broth. It's time to make that roux. As I said, I've got my bacon grease here, 1/3 cup. I've got 1/3 cup of flour. I'm going to make the roux, and I'll see you in 7 days. Okay, no, it won't take you that long, but maybe about 20 minutes or so, because we want to get a dark, rich roux. So come join me, and we'll get this started. Let's get the heat going here. It's about medium high. So our flour and our bacon grease. I guess you don't have to use bacon grease, but that's what was in the recipe. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so good. You could use olive oil. And now I'm going to be stirring this for about 20 minutes to get that real rich dark color. But while I'm doing this, I'll let you in on some historical bicentennial facts, since I was there also. And the bicentennial was a wonderful time period. In fact, here's a picture of the bicentennial star logo. You saw this everywhere, and they started using it probably around 1974, getting ready for the bicentennial. And then there was this big Operation Sail, where all these sailing ships got together, these tall ships, and they were in a parade up in New York Harbor on July 4th, 1976. And of course, there was huge fireworks displays, without a doubt. And President Ford was the president. And if you noticed in the background at the opening, there was a presidential seal behind me. And that seal was something my dad gave me. It's a whole set of them. They're beautifully lithographed seals. And I sent it to President Ford back around 2000 because I read that he would actually sign things that you sent to him. You know, no secretary or auto pen. And so I sent it to him, and sure enough, he sent it back. And so I got them framed. And of course, the bicentennial fireworks, as I mentioned, here's one from the Washington Monument. That is quite the spectacle, to say the least. But one of the biggest things that the bicentennial did is that it made people appreciate what they had. And as I said, this cookbook is from Galveston, Texas. That's where I grew up. And the women of the church decided, oh, let's do something about the history of our island. And one of the best things they did was name it the Galveston Island Cookbook instead of a church cookbook, because it has still been in print ever since 1975, 76 when it came out. But the Galveston Strand area, if anyone listening has ever been to Galveston, that area, when I was growing up, was dilapidated, and you didn't want to go down there at all. But with 1976, Bicentennial, people started to, hey, we've got some beautiful buildings here. And here's some pictures of some of those buildings, how they look now. And you can see how beautiful they are. So the good thing about the Bicentennial is that it got people to appreciate what they had. In the 1960s, there was a big push for out with the old, in with the new. And you saw beautiful buildings being torn down left and right. And then by the 70s, people started to think, whoa, what did we do here? And so that was one of the best things about the Bicentennial. So you should look in your own neighborhoods, your own cities, and see what is there, what do we need to be saving here? Do we need a historical marker in this area? Do we need a county marker? Do we need a state marker? Challenge your county and your city to do things like that. Okay, well, I'm going to keep going with this, and we'll see what we get. I've turned the heat off. That's why you're seeing all the vapor there. But we got a nice dark color here, nice dark roux. I think we're going to be just fine. I might give it a few more stirs, and then I will be done. Okay, I've added in my onion, my green onions, celery, bell peppers, green and red, and now I'm just sauteing that a little bit more. I might go ahead and turn the heat back on. Got it on medium. And we're making a nice concentrated flavor here. Go ahead and add my salt, pepper, and cayenne. I'm going to add the garlic. 3 cloves of minced garlic. And they were big cloves. That's 1 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, I think. Yeah, 1 8-ounce. Another 8-ounce. And here's our okra. And I probably should have put that in sooner before the tomato sauce, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. And my teaspoon of vinegar. One of the interesting things about gumbo is that you've got to have the sassafras and the fillet of gumbo. And I need to get that from the larder right now. Let me press my button. There it is. It's hung up. Got it. Let me close it. Okay, let's see. Should be in here. Yep, there it is. Oh, has some okra in there too. Okay, well, let me add that fillet of gumbo from the sassafras tree. Okay, this is 4 tablespoons of the filet of gumbo. One of the interesting facts about gumbo, it's definitely something that is all mixed together, whatever you have. And this filet is something that was native to the Choctaw Native Americans of the area. And they taught that to the French that were there. And of course the okra, that means, gumbo means okra. And that came from West African slaves that were brought over. And roux, of course, is a French term, but in French cooking, you don't have a dark roux in anything. So that is unique to what we have here in this recipe and to what they had in New Orleans at that time. I'm going to add my clams, 1 can of clams, and all the juice. I'm going to add our 1 quart of chicken broth. Well, now it's starting to look like something. Hope it tastes like something. I'm going to let that continue to cook. Now I'm not going to add the crab and the shrimp until towards the end, and the ham, because they're already cooked. So I'm going to wait to add those a little bit later. I'm back a little bit sooner than I thought. I'm going to go ahead and add that ham, because that'll give it a good flavor. I want that to mix in there. And it's okay if that just keeps cooking and gets a little softer. It's been 30 minutes. And I said I was going to read that inscription to the book when I did the roux, but I was too focused on the roux. But here's the inscription that was written to my mom. And it says, "Dear Mary Rose, without your work, this book would not have been. Thank you for helping make it possible." So that really meant a lot to her, that the rector of the church inscribed that. And she took this copy of the book and always kept it separate. So I don't want to get any food on it right now. So I'm going to let this still cook a little bit longer. But it's looking good. Looking real good. Probably give it another 30 minutes according to the recipe. I'm going to add the shrimp now. Oh, I had some ice in there. Oh, well, I'll just leave it. That was just to keep the shrimp cold. So I'm going to let that cook up. Then I'm going to add our wild-caught, hand-picked lump perfect crab. Not mediocre crab, but perfect crab. I'm going to add that after I see that the shrimp is done. I've given that shrimp about 6 minutes in here, and so it has now cooked up. Now I'm going to add the crab meat. This is just white crab meat. They didn't have the claw meat, but this tastes good too. Of course. Hey, time to dish it up. Nice big soup plate. Oh, that looks great. Looking good. Let's see if it passes the iron spoon kitchen test here. Let me get some of that crab and that shrimp. Pretty good. Yeah, that came out great. I can't say it's as good as my mom's, but it's close. One of the things I wish I had done is I'd made this with her before, but I never went and wrote down everything like I did for my cornbread dressing recipe. But I think I hit everything because she combined a couple of recipes that were in here to make this one. And so that's the neat thing about these old cookbooks, is that, it's gotten out of fashion because we have so much nowadays that, oh, we'll prepare this for you, we'll send this to you, it's frozen, go ahead and no work to do it. But I think we're missing something. And especially going over 250 years of recipes, we wouldn't have the history that we have without people doing these church cookbooks, community cookbooks, because that's all that there were for a very long time. So I think that this is one worth trying. One thing I would change is that I put in that okra a little bit too late. I should have put it in when I did all the vegetables, and I just forgot. That's all it was, but it still turned out great. And again, as I said, this is something you can freeze, and it will taste just as good, if not better, in a couple of weeks or so. I can tell you that as a guarantee. Well, thank you for joining me for our 1976 Bicentennial episode of the Iron Spoon Kitchen.